Hey there, what's going on? It is Rich. It is Wednesday, May 6th. It is 12:50, and I'm coming to you live from the office this morning or this afternoon rather than the studio. And we had some scheduling conflicts between the studio and the office. So here I am, and I'm going to give it to you the best way that I can in the time that we have together here. And what I wanted to do is, this is going to be one of weekly shows here where we're going to go live, talk about Cleveland real estate, bring some guests in, talk about different neighborhoods, things that are happening here in and around Northeast Ohio. And what I thought would be a really great way to start would be to really give you a live look at what's going on in Northeast Ohio real estate from a live action standpoint. So we're going to jump in and we're going to look at what active inventory is actively looking like, what each community is doing a little bit differently than the others. And what we're going to do is we're going to look and we're going to pick a few different communities and we're going to look at the inventory today, looking at what's going on. And I think it's going to provide you a snapshot and a picture in real time to the market. And the other thing that we're going to talk about too is kind of like from an expectation standpoint and from an execution standpoint, like how are we navigating this market here in Northeast Ohio as buyers and sellers are coming in, as interest rates are fluctuating, and trying to figure out how are we going to time this? What is this going to look like? Because a lot of this, to some people, it's a foreign. The average homeowner only buys and sells, once every 5 to 7 years, right? So if you're in that 5 to 7 year cycle and you haven't done this yet, you haven't experienced what that post-COVID market has created. And the way real estate is bought and sold today is different than the way real estate is bought and sold, pre-COVID. And that conversation is so vitally important to have, and we're gonna have a little bit of that conversation today, and we're gonna talk about what it looks like in different communities, right? Because not every community is going to move at the same speed. Not every community is going to sell at the same clip, right? We're gonna have some communities that are gonna sell slower than others. We're gonna see some communities that are going to sell more. And then what we're also going to see is that some communities like Parma, for example, where there's multiple zip codes, those communities, those zip codes in particular sell differently than the macro city as a whole, right? So, all of those things take into consideration as we're kind of talking about the market, as we're kind of talking about where things are going here in Northeast Ohio. But I think, again, it's May, so right, we're in that spring buying session, that spring buying cycle, and when we're in this buying cycle, what happens is the people that are actively buying today, the people that are out shopping today, they want to move this summer, right? And then the people that want to move this summer, so those people that are going to start buying in the next 60 days, they want to move before school starts. So we see these cycles of early spring, that March, April, those folks want to move May, June. And then the folks that are searching April, May, they want to move in May, June, July. And then there's that third phase before school starts where it's people that they're moving into a district specific, or they're moving across districts into a, maybe they might be upsizing into a district, right? So those are the three buying cycles that we see here in the spring market. So what I'm going to do, I'm just gonna pull up. I'm going to pull up the MLS here, and I'm going to just show you. Let's just take a look at what's going on active inventory, and let's start with Broadview Heights as the example, and we're going to pull single family and condos. So we're going to look at both single family and condos. And what I want to show you is what this inventory actually looks like. So in Broadview Heights right now, there are 23 properties for sale. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 8 that I would consider as condos. But what's even more interesting is that some of these that they might be considered single family or condo, and yet like this, and it might be this is when you go live, sometimes you get interesting things. This town center, this is a villa. This is a villa. But you look at Bordeaux here, this is going to be new construction. This is going to be an attached unit. So what we're seeing is it's going to be different. It's going to be different, and yet there's a story to tell. So of the 23 properties for sale in Broadview Heights, you can see the majority of them are sub 500, right? You can see that 14 of the 23 are below 500,000. And what that tells me is that that's where the majority of the buyers or the sellers are coming out of, right? They're moving out of that sub 5, and they're either moving up or they're moving out. And if they're moving up, they're going to go into this higher price point. Or if they're moving out, they might be looking into Brecksville, into Richfield, into different areas. So those are all things to look at. And what's also interesting here is that if we look at Broadview Heights, let's come back in here and let's customize this. Let's only look at Broadview Heights, because what this will do is this will tell us a story of the last. Let's look at the last 7 days in Broadview Heights. So we're still very much in a seller's market here, right? Where in the last 7 days there have been 4 new listings that have come on the market. Yet there have been 10 properties that had an under contract status change between those that are allowing showings and those that have gone that are not allowing showings, right? So in 7 days, we've seen 4 homes come on the market, 7 come off. And what we've seen is that there have been 2 price decreases. Now, when we look at other cities, we might see more inventory and more price decreases. And what that's going to tell us is that there's not as much demand in that city. So if we take Broadview Heights out, now let's look at a city like Parma, for example. Parma in the last 7 days. Now they've had 24 properties go under contract, but they've also had 5 properties go back on the market in the last 7 days that were under contract. They've had 8 price decreases. They've had 28 sold. They've had 7 new listings. Parma, again, very price point driven, but what we're seeing here in Parma is that there's still a seller's market in Parma. There's less active inventory. There's less homes for new listings coming on the market than there are going under contract, right? So when we see that, what that says is that there's more demand than there is supply. And I bet even if we come and look at Parma here, and if we just did a search at Parma and looked at let's just look at single family homes, in the entire city of Parma, there are 49 properties for sale. Well, let's actually tweak this again. Let's eliminate the ones that are allowing showings. There's 33 properties in the city of Parma that are for sale, right? So there's more than 33 buyers looking in the city, which is why when we look at this, we can see like back on market, back on market, back on market, back on market. So these 4, they went under contract very quickly, except minus this one, right? 100 days, 94 days. 2 days, 4 days. This one on Ames and this one on Nottingham went under contract in the first couple of days on the market, and then something happened and they fell back out. So that could have been an inspection. It could have been buyers getting cold feet. It could have been any number of things. And yet what we see is days on market in Parma. Let's look at what days on market looks like. Your average days on market in Parma is averaging at 40 days. So it's taking the average house in Parma 40 days to go under contract. Now, if we come back here, keeping that 40-day number, and let's go back and look at a city like Broadview Heights, for example. And if we look at the inventory in Broadview Heights for these 15 single family homes that are available, the average days on market for those 15 are 100 days. Now, some of this I will almost bet is going to be new construction. So let's take the new construction out of this conversation, because that's going to completely skew our numbers. This was built 24, so somebody lives there, nobody lives here. All right, so if we come back to the line view here, let's narrow this out. So now of the nine homes for sale in the city of Broadview Heights that are not condos, that are not new construction, you're going to see a massive inventory shift here. So let's now look at our stats, and let's look at days on market, 77 days on market. And yet there's only 9 available single family homes for sale in the city. It's pretty interesting, right? It's pretty interesting how the numbers look. So if we come back, let's look at a city like let's look at North Royalton now. And in North Royalton, there's 26 single family homes. Again, there's going to be some new construction in here, but let's look at what these numbers look like. In North Royalton, your average days on market is going to be 51. So homes are selling faster in North Royalton than they are in Broadview Heights on average, right? Your median days on market, though, is 16. Your median day on market, though, is 16. So you're still seeing homes sell in North Royalton very quickly. Strongsville has 33 homes for sale in their community. And even when we look at Strongsville, what we're going to see is our story is going to be rather different. 90 days on market on average with a median of 48. So again, each community that we look at is going to be different. So when people talk about the market, what I want you to hear when we talk about the market is that it is very neighborhood specific. The market is very, very neighborhood specific. And when we look at what the data is telling us, it's vitally important if you're looking to buy or sell. It's vitally important that you're not looking at what sold 90 days ago, right? If you look at what sold in January and you look at what's selling today, the pricing is going to be very different because the market is different and has been different, and it's changing, right? So the conversation that we have with our sellers, right? We have these conversations all of the time. And the conversation that we're having with our sellers right now is, listen, your neighbor's house down the street, it might have sold in March for $450,000. But today, your house might be worth $440,000. It might be worth less than what your neighbor's house sold for. But there wasn't the Iran conflict then. Oil prices, gas prices weren't where they were. The economics of the market changed. Therefore, our market changed, right? So while yeah, it's still a great time, we have to acknowledge that what happened 90 days ago isn't what's actually happening today. The biggest comparable that you can use as you're getting ready to sell your home, though, here's what the biggest thing is. And this is something that if you're in the market to sell your house, if you're thinking about selling, this is something that you need to look at. Don't look at what the house is sold for 30 days ago, 60 days ago, 90 days ago. Look at what homes are selling for today, because days on market is going to be your enemy, and so is the house down the street from you. Because if you go on the market here and they're priced here, what you might be doing is you might be benchmarking the pricing to allow your house to sell this house, because the agent could position them that other house could position you as, why would you pay X for this one when you can pay Y and get for this at a lower price? Even though you might have more bells, you might have more whistles. When we're comparing price in the same general location, a buyer might perceive the deal to be the lesser price versus the higher amenity, even though those two things might not correlate together. So just different things that we notice, that we see as we're working with our clients, is that days on market is going to be your enemy, first and foremost. It doesn't matter what your neighbor's home sold for last week, last month, or last year. What matters more is, where is the market sitting today? What do buyers have to choose from today? And how are you going to position yourself today so that your house sells? Because what we know, and this is what COVID has taught us, and this is what COVID has taught anybody that has bought a home in the past 5 or 6 years, is as we're walking to the front door with the client, one of the very first things that buyer is going to ask is, they're going to say, Rich, remind me again, how long has the house been on the market? And if it's less than 14 days, I would even argue less than 10 days, the buyers understand that they're not going to get a deal. But I promise you, as soon as you get 10 to 14 days on market, the buyers are going to wonder, why hasn't it sold yet? What's going on? Why hasn't this house sold yet? And then so they go in the front door automatically thinking, there's got to be something wrong with this house. What am I missing? Why hasn't anybody bought this yet? So the excitement of, I can't wait to go see this house, is now met with, what's wrong with it? I got to find something. Why hasn't it sold? So the mindset shift with the buyers, vastly different. And because of that, we need to reposition the way we sit on the market. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down there, because it's so important when we look at what this looks like. So all of this is to be said. Like, we did the snapshot looking at the different cities, and we picked a few. Inventory is tight. There's still not a lot of inventory, and the great houses that are on the market, they're selling fast, and they're selling for top dollar when they're positioned right. The homes that are sitting, they're sitting because they didn't position properly. The listing agent failed to position the house properly on the market. The marketing wasn't where it needed to be. That's a very important piece. If the marketing is not a 10 out of 10, the house is going to sit, no matter how good it's priced, right? The third piece is, you have to understand that days on market is going to be your enemy if you're looking to sell the house. Days on market is your friend if you're looking to buy, because the longer it's been on the market, the better chance you have of getting that seller that's done, that's ready to just give up and just fold in. But you also have to understand that even though inventory is tight, the market isn't as competitive as it used to be. In an industry right now where we're fighting with volatile interest rates, in a market where we're fighting with news of what's going on in Iran, where gas is approaching, $4.50 to $5 a gallon, depending on where you're at. All of these things play a factor in the economics of buying and selling real estate, believe it or not. So these are all things to monitor and all things to watch over the next, 30 to 60 days. And we're going to continue to do so. And we're going to continue to be here live with you weekly. We'll eventually set a standard time, and that'll be the day. But today it's 12:50 on a Wednesday. Why? Because, sometimes you just got to pivot. And I will tell you too that we're gonna look at some different things going on in each city, right? We'll look at what's going on new business wise in Broadview Heights. We'll look at what's going on in Brecksville with Valor Acres. We'll look at North Royalton and what's going on there in Strongsville and Richfield and Hinckley. Anything that you even want to talk about involving Northeast Ohio real estate, always send us a message. Jump here in the chat. Let us know what you want to talk about. We'll add it to the list. Because we're here. Our job, our goal is to bring you information that you want about Northeast Ohio, about Cleveland, about the Broadview, Brecksville, school districts, the elections, the car dealership coming into town, whatever it is, we're here to bring it to you. And we're going to continue to do so each and every week. So thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you. If this sucked, go ahead and tell me that too. I'll only get better, but I promise it's going to take a while. And, the next time you'll see me live next week, hopefully we'll be in the studio where you'll get to see some of the background and different things that we've been building. But until then, enjoy Connor Hellebuck saving the goal there from the gold medal game in the Olympics and my son's artwork. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week. We'll check you next week, and look out on Monday. Monday we'll be dropping new videos every week. Every Monday we'll be dropping new videos. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, do that so you get the notification. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Thanks for joining us.